So I want to talk about the real problem with people with high body count. And I will be focusing specifically on women for the most part, simply because they are more prevalent. Women with high body counts are more prevalent than men with high body counts. And I also think most people do a piss poor job at explaining the problem with having a high body count, because if people actually had a good explanation, then we wouldn't be seeing people with high body counts in society. And so I have to, once and for all, give a good explanation. And this is coming from a man that has actually had similar mindsets and views as the so-called 304s. And so a lot of us, especially in our teenage years, we get this idea that there is something very prestigious about being able to attract the opposite gender. And the more people that you can attract from the opposite gender, the more attractive you are. And the less people you can attract from the opposite gender, the less attractive you are. And we want to be as attractive as possible, and we think that there's something very prestigious about being attractive, something to be very, proud of. And so, for pretty much as long as I can remember, for at least half of my life, I was convinced that I was able to attract a lot of women as a man, or that at least I would level up as a man and then be able to attract multiple women. And I always thought that I would be this, playboy, this F-boy that would sleep around with a bunch of women, but I never got to do that. But I thought, one day I will be able to sleep around with a bunch of women. And I looked at all the men that were quote-unquote happily married. And a lot of the times, the woman they were married to was the only woman they have ever dated in their whole life. Probably also the only woman they have ever slept with, and all that. And I used to look at those men, and I kind of looked down on those men. I saw those men as losers. I had my own term for those men, and it was a one-woman man, aka a man that only attracted one woman in his whole life. And I was like, that loser. Yeah, he is happily married, but so what? He's a one-woman man, so I don't care about him. He can only attract one woman in his whole life. And yes, at that time, I was able to attract 0 women. So the losers that I look down on, that could only attract one woman, could still attract one woman more than me. They were still better than me in that regard. But I thought, don't worry, I might be an even bigger loser than them right now, but I will work on myself, so that one day I can become this high-value man. And then, when I reach their age, because a lot of those men were older than me, and so I thought to myself, when I become as old as them, then I will have attracted more women than them in their life, because I am more attractive than them. And so if they could only attract one woman, I would be able to attract 2 women, or more. And now that some time has passed, I have realized the problem with my, worldviews of this, one-woman man and that stuff. And this problem can be best explained with promiscuous women, with women that have high body counts. You see, a lot of those women that you see, they are really attractive. They may not be conventionally good looking, but they are still able to attract a whole bunch of men. And so naturally, when you have no problem attracting the opposite gender, and there are a lot of people from the opposite gender that literally line up for you, then you have the freedom to choose who you are gonna pick, who you are gonna date, who you are gonna sleep with, who you are gonna start a family with. And so you would probably have some really high standards and only pick the best of them all. Someone that can actually have a good impact on you and your future children. That would probably be the best decision for you to make. But here is when the problem comes. When you see one of those like OF girls that have a body count over 100, so that means that they picked 100 men. But how many men were actually lining up? Because I refuse to believe that the 100 of men that were ultimately chosen, that they were like 0.1% of a much bigger sample. And I also refuse to believe that all those 100 men were some chads, that all of them were some high-value men that would be the best decision for those girls. I even refuse to believe that all those 100 men would be more attractive than me. But anyways, what I think instead happens here is that those girls basically sleep with every man that comes up to her. And that says a lot about her standards. She probably doesn't have any standards at all. The men don't have to do anything to get inside her. They basically only have to show up, and that's all they need to do. And what happens as a consequence of that is you then get a bunch of low-value men, a bunch of loser men that are unable to have sex because they are losers. No normal girl wants them because they are losers, duh! And they want to lose their virginity. So when they see that this girl, they are like, oh, this girl doesn't have standards. She is willing to sleep with any man that shows up. So if I show up to her, I will also lose my virginity. I will also have sex. I will be able to do all that. And so then a whole bunch of low-value men start lining up in front of that girl. Meanwhile, the high-value men, they see everything from the distance and they think to themselves, if this woman is sleeping with like even the biggest loser men, then why should she sleep with me? I want to feel special. I want to sleep with a woman that only chooses me, not some losers, because I don't want to associate with all those loser guys. And so what ends up happening as a result is all the high value, all the S-tier men avoid this girl like the plague, and instead the girl ends up being bombarded by a bunch of low value men, and then as a result she only ends up attracting low tier simps. This is something we are seeing with Lily Phillips, like this OF girl. She has slept with like hundreds or even thousands of men, and now you constantly see a bunch of loser men desperate to sleep with her, and they like approach her, and then she sleeps with them, those loser men, and then even bigger loser men come up to her, and girls just like her, and the value of those girls just end up plummeting like the stock market. And so when you, especially as a girl, but maybe even as a guy, if you have no standards and you are willing to sleep with whoever you want, what will happen is that a bunch of losers will use that to their own advantage. And because of that, you will end up attracting a bunch of low value people. That sounded horrible because we all have a value. I meant low tier men, low tier women. Not low value people, that sounded harsh. But low tier men, low tier women. You end up attracting them, meanwhile all the Chads and Stacys avoid you like the plague. And so now I realize, all those so-called one-woman men that I made fun of, that I looked down upon, that I mocked and ridiculed, they are not actually one-woman men. They are not actually a one-woman man. The reason why they have only been with one woman their whole life is not because they are some losers that were only able to attract one woman in their whole life. They were probably able to attract multiple women, but they chose to be with only one woman. They probably have secretly, to this very day, a bunch of women lining up to them. But they have to reject those women and they are like, sorry, I'm already taken with one woman only. Maybe that's the true definition of one woman man, and I need to redefine my worldviews. And so what truly makes a high value man or a high value woman, aka a really attractive person, is if you are able to attract as many people as possible, but then you choose to be with as little people as possible.